Think about the fairy tales you grew up with. You likely picture a safe space at the end of the day, a world with clear rules where virtue is rewarded and magical lessons are designed specifically for children. The original 1812 edition, compiled by the Brothers Grimm, lacked illustrations entirely. Instead, the text contained unfiltered accounts of mutilation, starvation, and raw survival. These stories began as terrifying records of reality for adults, long before they were ever intended for the nursery. Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm approached these stories as legal scholars and philologists. Their work was rooted in the study of language and ancient law, rather than entertainment. They viewed their mission as an academic salvage operation to record and preserve German cultural history directly from unvarnished oral sources. They gathered their material from older peasants and locals who recited generations of survivalist folklore, stories shaped by centuries of living on the edge. By documenting these accounts, the Grimms archived the brutal human condition of a specific pre-modern era. To understand why a culture would preserve such trauma in its stories, we can look to the Marquis de Sade's theory on the origins of fiction. He argued that man first invented fables and novels as a way to process the fears and hopes of the human mind when confronted by the terrors of the world. This lens of processing fear clarifies the historical context hidden within Hansel and Gretel. The story begins with parents actively conspiring to abandon their children to wild animals because a severe famine has left them with little to bite and to break. Historical records of a famine reveal a resource deficit timeline where household supplies eventually drop below the threshold of basic survival. When resources reach zero, the logic of the era dictated a horrific choice. The survival of the adults necessitated the sacrifice of the dependents. In the 1812 text, systemic starvation acts as the primary antagonist, a reflection of the very real desperation experienced by the story's original audience. The robber bridegroom takes the common practice of the arranged marriage and twists it into a survival horror. The original tale details a murderer's den, defined by human trafficking, cannibalism, and the systematic dismemberment of young women. The terrified protagonist watches from behind a cask as a gold ring is hacked off a victim's hand. The severed finger springs into the air and falls directly into the hiding girl's lap, the only physical evidence of the crime. Sade observed in his writing that in a corrupt world, virtue is often found sore beset, and vice is frequently allowed to flourish and prosper. In the world of the Grimms, the protagonists survive through cunning, trickery, or pure luck, ignoring the moral binaries we expect today. These stories served as warnings that the world was chaotic, arbitrary, and frequently indifferent to human goodness. How did these archives of violence and survival transform into the bedtime stories of today? The shift began in 1823 with the English translation by Edgar Taylor. Taylor intentionally selected and softened the stories, specifically aiming for the amusement of some young friends. This new approach replaced the stark academic text with gentle, colorful illustrations, rebranding the tales as light entertainment for children. The modern fairy tale was created through the deliberate erasure of the historical trauma contained in the original versions. Modern authors now work to reintroduce the horror and survivalist reality back into these narratives to honor their true roots. Angela Carter's work, such as The Snow Child, serves as a prime example, reclaiming the visceral and often violent truth of the original lore. These original tales serve as mirrors, reflecting a time when the world was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable. Reading the original, unvarnished Grimm tales in their true form allows us to finally see past the comforting, sanitized myth we were all sold. They provide a direct look into the deepest anxieties, fears, and the ultimate resilience of the human beings who lived through them.